Okay, I've got a question for you. What could Oscar Wilde's most famous play possibly have in common with the Barbie movie? I know, right? It sounds kind of crazy. One's this super witty 19th century comedy about aristocrats, and the other, a 21st century blockbuster about a doll. But if you look just a little bit closer, you'll see they're telling, believe it or not, the exact same story.
All right, let's really dive into this super unlikely pairing. So on one hand, you've got The Importance of Being Earnest, a really sophisticated satire of high society hypocrisy. And on the other, you have Greta Gerwig's totally pink-drenched film that, let's be honest, took the entire world by storm. I mean, the settings are worlds apart for sure, but the central theme, it's identical.
So what is the connection? Well, it all comes down to this one big idea that runs through both stories. It's about the performance. You know, the mask we all put on to try and escape what society expects from us, and hopefully find out who we really are underneath it all.
Okay, so let's start with the problem. It's really at the heart of both of these worlds. We can call it the performance trap, and you probably know the feeling. It's that sense of being forced to play a role that somebody else, that society, has already written for you.
In Oscar Wilde's world, this trap was, the stuffy moral hypocrisy of the Victorian aristocracy. Every single thing you did was governed by these unspoken, rigid rules. Then you jump over to Greta Gerwig's world, and the trap is totally different but also the same. It's that pre-packaged, commodified perfection of Barbie land, where your identity is basically a product right out of the box.
And this leads to a really crucial idea. There's a fancy academic term for it, self-fashioning, but what it really means is this. The characters in both these stories, they deliberately invent a second identity, a mask. And it's not just to fool people for fun. It's a tool, a necessary tool for them to survive and just get by in these super restrictive worlds.
All right, so if that's the trap, what's the escape plan? Well, the characters come up with a really clever solution, the alter ego. And in Wilde's play, he gives this whole technique a brilliant, unforgettable name.
Get ready for The Art of Bun Burying. It's amazing. Wilde's main characters, Jack and Algernon, they just invent fake people out of thin air. One has a troublesome brother named Earnest, the other has a sickly friend named Bunbury. And why? It's the perfect excuse to duck out of their boring duties and, actually have a little fun.
Now pay attention to how Wilde frames this lie. Speaking through his character Algernon, it's not seen as some kind of moral failure, not at all. It's treated as a practical, almost essential tool for happiness. Think about that for a second. In this world, lying isn't just okay, it's basically a requirement for a good life.
And then we've got Ken. In Barbie, he does his own, let's say, much clumsier version of bun burying. He's trying to escape that total identity vacuum of being just Ken, right? So he goes to the real world, discovers patriarchy, and drags it back to Barbie land. He's desperately performing this new macho identity just to feel like he matters. That's his escape hatch.
But, of course, you can't have a system that demands everyone perform without an enforcer. You need a powerful figure, the social police, who's there to make sure everybody stays right in their assigned box.
And here they are, our two main antagonists. In Wilde's corner, we have the absolutely terrifying Lady Bracknell, the guardian of all Victorian social rules. And her counterpart in Barbie, the kind of bumbling but still powerful Mattel CEO, whose only job is to protect corporate profits.
I mean, Lady Bracknell's famous interview with Jack, it's the ultimate checklist for conformity. She literally could not care less if he's a good person. What does she care about? Does he have the right income, the right social connections, and oh yeah, most importantly, was he born in a handbag? Because that's a deal breaker. She is all about enforcing a system based on a documented, acceptable past.
And the Mattel CEO? His motivation is way simpler. It's purely commercial. Money. Barbie having an existential crisis? That is bad for the brand's bottom line. So his goal is incredibly simple. Put that doll back in her box. Make her go back to performing her role as a perfect, marketable product. That's how he secures a profitable future. End of story.
Okay, this brings us to the real climax of the whole comparison. How do our heroes finally break free? Because they do. But the answers? Wow. They could not be more different. And that difference, it tells us a ton about how our own ideas of freedom have changed over time.
So in The Importance of Being Earnest, freedom comes from a ridiculously lucky accident. It's wild. It turns out Jack's lie was actually the truth all along. His real name is Earnest. So his freedom is basically granted by the system because his fake identity accidentally fit its rules. But Barbie? No. For her, liberation is a conscious choice. She decides to reject her manufactured role completely.
And this right here is the crucial difference, and it's captured perfectly in what Barbie says. She chooses to be the creator of her own identity, not the creation of some corporation. She takes her freedom. It isn't just handed to her by some convenient plot twist.
All right, let's bring this all home. So what? Why does this big shift from accidental freedom to chosen freedom, why does that actually matter for us right now, today?
Well, the journey from Wilde all the way to Gerwig really maps out this massive cultural shift in how we think about freedom. It's not about finding some clever loophole to be happy inside a broken system anymore. Now we see true freedom as forging a whole new path, even if that means you have to leave the system behind entirely.
At the end of the day, both of these brilliant satires are this powerful reminder that navigating society's expectations, it's always required us to perform. It's always been theater. Whether you're an aristocrat inventing a fake brother or a doll choosing to get cellulite, that search for an authentic self, it's a grand performance.
And that leaves us with one final thought, one last question for you. When you look at the performance of your own life, how much of the person you are is just an accident of your circumstances, just conforming to the system around you? And how much of it is a conscious, deliberate choice you've made? That's the real question that both Wilde and Barbie leave us wrestling with.